Welcome to Online Yoga School. I'm Steph, and today we're going to go into Lotus Pose, Padmasana. So you'll need a block possibly and some blankets. So let's hop to the mat and get into a little Lotus action. So the first thing to consider is, should I even be practicing Lotus? Is this a safe posture for me? Lotus is not safe for everybody. And if it's not safe for you, it's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. So if you've had like a hip injury, a knee injury, an ankle injury, if you have nerve issues, you want to stay away from Lotus. And then the next question you ask yourself is, am I ready for Lotus? So if you can completely close the knee joint, you might be ready for Lotus. So what does that mean? Well, to close the knee joint completely, you would bring the thigh and the calf together with no space here. One thing that might stop the knee joint from closing completely is shortened quads, if your quadriceps aren't long enough. So if that's the case, you can practice hero pose and work on lengthening the quads. And if you need modifications or instructions for hero pose, I'll link that to this video. Another thing that could cause the knee joint not to close completely is compression here with the soft tissue. So you could try gently like rolling the calf out to make some space and then seeing if that helps the knee joint close. If the knee joint closes completely, then you want to take a look at the hips. So try coming into a bound angle, Baddha Konasana. If you can comfortably do this and your knees are not super high, then you may have the openness in the hips to come into Lotus. So if you need tips for Baddha Konasana modifications, I'll also link that video. Because when you're coming into Lotus, there's this external rotation of the hip. There's also an internal rotation of the hip as we come into the posture. So we want to make sure that we're ready to try Lotus Pose, first of all. So does the knee close and do I have the openness in the hips? So if you've got a yes going on for both of those, then let's move forward. You would want to start in staff pose, so with the legs extended in front of you. Now, as you extend the legs, there may be, if you've got tight hip flexors, if you have tight hammies, you may find that there's this tilt in the pelvis that causes you to lose the length in the spine. So if that's the case, then you might want to sit on a blanket. I am definitely sitting on a blanket here. So then, once you get up on your blanket or a block, if you choose to use props, extend the legs in front of you. And then we're going to hug the right leg in. So let's just cradle it so the foot comes kind of in towards the navel and just kind of rock back and forth here. Open that hip. And then when you're ready, you would place the right foot in towards the left groin. Now, right away, you'll see my right knee floating. So you can take a block or blankets if this happens and bring it under the knee. You never want to force the knee down to the ground. It's much better to bring the floor up to the knee here. And then we'll take the left leg and do the same. So you'll bring the left foot in towards the right groin. And if you need blankets underneath the left knee, by all means, get yourself set up. So from here, we're in Lotus Pose. And then there's a slight tilt of the pelvis that just allows the spine to curve in a way that's natural and gives us a little bit of length. So we should be able to sit up nice and tall in this posture. Okay, so Lotus Pose is a great hip opener. It's a really deep hip opener, and it's also calming for the brain, and it's great for our spine, great for our posture. Lots of benefits here. And it gives us this space too for energy to flow freely up and down the spine. So it's good for moving energy up through all 7 of our chakras. So we're going to talk about how you can modify this pose. Now, we've already talked about a couple of modifications. If you're losing that length in the spine, you want to elevate the hips. So you would sit on some blankets, you would sit on a block, maybe even a bolster. If the knees are floating, you would bring blankets or a block to pad underneath the knees. If you're finding that the ankles are rolling in, one of the things you could do is roll up a blanket and bring it right here. Bring the rolled blanket or the rolled towel right here to kind of support the ankles. So that's another way that we can modify Lotus Pose. And then of course you can always practice half Lotus. So if you're new to this, or even if you've been doing it a while and full Lotus just isn't working for you, you just bring one leg into Lotus and the other can stay extended, or maybe the other leg comes into easy pose. And as long as you're able to keep that length in the spine, then you know that the posture is working for you. So thank you so much for practicing with me today. The light in me, of course, honors the light in you. And I send you much gratitude. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And let's talk in the comments. Let me know what modifications you liked best for your body in Lotus Pose.